Hello there, Tando Book Club lovers. This season, we're putting the books written by your favorite African female authors center stage. Joining me in the studio as co-host is the fabulous and amazing book reviewer, Sarah Nyengerai. As is our custom, we always begin every episode with a quote from a famous African that we believe captures the spirit and message of the book we'll be discussing. Naturally, we've chosen our quotes for this season from the book that is being discussed in that episode. Today's quote is, "If the burden is too much and stays too long, even love bends, cracks, comes close to breaking, and sometimes does break. But when it's in 1,000 pieces around your feet, that doesn't mean it's no longer love." Stay With Me by Ayobami Adebayo. Sarah, tell us a little bit about this author.
Thank you, Selina. Ayobami is an upcoming author, Nigerian, and this was her debut novel, Stay With Me. She has appeared in a number of magazines, mostly with short stories. And she also worked as an editor for Saraba magazine. She has an MA in creative writing. She is UK educated and has done, I think, some fellowships in America as well and in Nigeria. So she's one to watch out for, and great storyline, as we will discover.
Definitely. So this book, Stay With Me, when I first heard about it, a lot of people were like, "Oh, it's so lovely," and "Oh, there's this, it's a love story." Then I read it, and immediately I fell in love with the writing. Right? There was something about the style of writing where I just also felt myself in love, and then I fell out of love very quickly. She played with me a little bit. It was fast-paced, it was easy to read, and there were many, many big issues discussed. What were your impressions of the book?
I agree with you on fast-paced and easy to read, beautifully written, and she does highlight a critical issue that a lot of African women continue to face, which is barrenness. There's also a touch on sickle cell. There is also a touch on religion, and how religion can, on the wrong side of religion, you go mental and you lose it. And we will see that as we continue to unpack the book. So she's one to watch out for, and I look forward to more of her books.
Definitely, yeah. To me, there were so many twists, like the revelations as they started coming out through the book. And some of the choices characters make, I was like, oh, this is like a soap opera. This is like we've gone way past Nigerian movie for me. Like this is some really, really big drama happening here. And I was surprised she chose to tell the story in that way. But I mean, often I think when I think about some of the things that you read online and social media and the scandalous stories, we do a lot of crazy things in the name of love and calling it love. And so I think one of the questions or inner reveries I was having as well, what is love actually? What does that mean? So that's very, very interesting to me. The book is set in Elesa, Nigeria, set between kind of 1985 to 2008. So there's like a period of the marriage that is being sort of unpacked and discovered. And we open in sort of like present day in the 2000s. And Yejide, the main character, is now set to go back to Nigeria. And, you know, there's a quest. And then we go back in time and we begin to unpack why she is where she is and why she's on this quest, on a return to look for this lost love. So I found the structure of that very engaging. I was totally drawn in from the beginning, and I do think she did a really good job on this book. So in terms of love, what is love? I think one of the big questions is lies and betrayal. So what role does truth-telling mean? Can you lie to someone and still love them? I think that's one of the big questions in this book. And I actually feel like she answered it very, very well, because you don't feel like anybody really benefited from the lies that were told to protect the love in the book. Totally. So that was some of my huge impressions around the book. But we're coming to the close of this segment, so we're just going to take a short break. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back with you in just a few short moments to discuss Stay With Me. And you don't want to miss the segment, because now we're going to get into all the scandals. See you soon. Welcome back. You're watching the Tando Book Club, and we're discussing Stay With Me. And in the studio, I have Sarah Nyengerai, our guest co-host, and she will be helping me review this book. So usually at this time in the discussion, this is where we like to talk about cast and characters. And I think one of the very strong themes that you raised earlier was the issue of families, barrenness, and the social force that families are. We've got Yejide, the main character, or the protagonist of the book, her husband Aiken, his brother Durton, and her mother-in-law Mumi, and then of course there's her family who play a big role in her quest for a child and what that's doing to her family. In terms of favorites and least favorites, anyone who left a lasting impression?
Thank you, Selina. I liked Yejide, her storyline, because it goes, she takes us back to her childhood, and she is orphaned, and she was treated poorly by her father's other wives. So she was shipped from one wife to another, and they mistreated her. So she longs to create a relationship, to recreate a mother-daughter relationship that is beautiful than what she had experienced. Then, of course, you have the secrets and the lies, but the pressure from her mother-in-law, Mumi, is what you read about and what you see growing up in African homes. It's extreme, but it's the tendency. And it reminded me of a saying, you marry into a family and you take them on with their weaknesses, their toxic behaviors, and their strengths. You're taking on everything, and we see how she took on everything. Lots of twists and turns. Aiken was my greatest disappointment because he watched her suffer and knew it was not of her doing. And he was happy to protect himself, and she's going to all these lengths, and there's no disclosure and of what she's walking into. And I believe if you're marrying into a family, if there is an illness that is terminal, that should come up, that there is a history of this and this. So they kept that from her and just watched her suffer. And the deceit, it kept turning, and you're like, okay, I think this is enough. And then another thing comes, you're like, I can't take it again emotionally, and you're just a reader, so yeah.
Definitely, and I feel like Ayobami packed in deceit. I mean, this really read like a tabloid in some points. I mean, there's like a lot of, and for me, there was like just also some crime involved in there in terms of the level of lies and the things people did to each other. And, you know, I do agree with you, Aiken is a disappointment because, you know, they take you back to their courtship days, and he really pursues her and really kind of makes a play for her that kind of says, I am trustworthy.
Yes.
Like, I am the safe place. You are the one that I want. And in the beginning, in the very early days of their marriage, there's almost a defense and a protection of that. But the abandonment really begins very soon in that marriage. And so it is very, very interesting. And I think just the dramatic irony, because Yejide seems to be like she's on top of the situation in terms of the lies and the betrayal. But then when everything is uncovered, you realize she had no idea truly what she was walking into. So that is very powerful. And I think it does beg the question I was asking earlier, which is, can you truly love someone if you're lying to them, knowing you are lying to them? You know, they say the difference between lies and deceit is that deceit has part truth. Lies, you know you're lying. And there was both here. What was a key life lesson for you?
She mentions as the key character in the book, if you lie or betray to save your family, is it really a lie? So that as a lesson, I would tie it to, it's pretty obvious, like open and transparent communication is very important. You may lie and betray to protect, but things come back to bite you. You can't hide things forever. And I think that's what happened. Try and keep a check on your desperation. That's another thing. We have a scene in which, like you said, it became very Nollywood because you're like, does this really happen? But you see how in the name of religion, she did some shocking things because she was desperate. So I also found myself thinking, if you're ever in a situation you can't change, try and monitor your levels of desperation.
Totally. Yeah. I think if you're feeling desperate and you're about to do something that isn't you,
yes,
that's the moment to check yourself and pause. Definitely. I agree with that. Well, we've run out of time for this segment, but thank you for watching. We will be back in a few short moments where we're going to do something that we love to do on the book club, which is do a reading from the book. You don't want to miss it. And if you're dealing with an issue of lies and betrayal in your family, I think you should stay tuned for the rest of this conversation. If there's a book that discusses that, this is it. Welcome back. You're watching the Tando Book Club and we're discussing Stay With Me, and we're here in the studio with Sarah Nyingarai. So Sarah, what was the unique strength of the writing or the story or the characters that you found in this book?
Thank you, Selina. It's an easy read. She packed in a lot, but didn't overwhelm readers. The twists and turns keep you entertained. It's not a story that you have not read or heard, but the extent to which people go out of their way to escape their lives, or the lengths they will go to tell lies, she pushed it. So I liked that in terms of she kept going in just showing us where a person can, how far a person can go when they're desperate. So she's a great creative writer, so I liked that.
Definitely. I think there's something about the sense, the feeling of the book where, because there are so many twists and turns that are so dramatic, you think, is she celebrating this bad behavior that, is shocking, that you're seeing that is shocking? Or is she actually exposing its short-term thinking and its limitedness and the consequences? Because consequences, I think, are a big thing that is revealed and celebrated in this book. You get what you deserve. You reap what you sow. And every time you go outside of rightness with yourself to do something, it will come back to you. So even in the lies that we do tell to protect, actually, there are worse lies we then create, or we discover or uncover worse things. So I really, really actually appreciated that. One of the things that I found was a unique strength in the book, I keep going on about this, but I can't get over it, is the writing style. It was easy to read, not because it was simple, because she's telling a complicated story when you think about it, but there was a beauty to the turns of phrase. There was a beauty to the choice of words. There was a beauty to the way that she revealed the hearts of these people and the images that were sort of stirred up. So one of them that was very emotive for me is from the very beginning of the novel, where she's unpacking her situation of barrenness, and she discusses how, or she shows how Aiken, all these relatives would come to the house and Aiken would listen and he would write down what they would be saying. And then they would be like, oh, the educated man is writing down what we're saying. And so like really they would be like, and then if he paused or if he didn't write for like a spell in the lecture of why they must have children and what they must do about it, they would be like,
what's
you must write that
yes.
down. Like you must write that down. So I thought that was, she really did that. really beautifully in a way where even where I think she was showing us some things that were not nice to see, they were done beautifully because the writing was beautiful. So I really enjoyed that. But we're actually getting to a stage in the show where we like to do the reading. And I've asked specifically for you to do a piece that I love, that I thought was very much part of the love story. So please, can you share it with us?
Sure. So this is a piece, and it's Yejide, and it's Selina's favorite piece. I drag myself out of bed and change out of my nightgown. I will not waste another minute. The questions you must answer, the ones I've choked on for over a decade, quicken my steps as I grab my handbag and go into the living room. There's 17 bags here, ready to be carried into my car. I stare at the bags, recalling the contents of each one. If this house was on fire, what would I take? I have to think about this because the first thing that occurs to me is nothing. I choose the overnight bag I'd planned to bring with me for the funeral and a leather pouch filled with gold jewelry. Musa can bring the rest of the bags to me another time. This is it then. 15 years here, and though my house is not on fire, all I'm taking is a bag of gold and a change of clothes. The things that matter are inside me, locked up below my breast as though in a grave, a place of permanence, my coffin like treasure chest. I step outside, the air is freezing, and the black sky is turning purple on the horizon as the sun ascends. Musa is leaning against the car, cleaning his teeth with a stick. He spits into a cup as I approach and puts the chewing stick in his breast pocket. He opens the car door, we exchange greetings, and I climb into the back seat. Musa switches on the car radio and searches for the stations. He settles for one that is starting the day's broadcast with the recording of the national anthem. The gateman waves goodbye as we drive out of the compound. The road stretches before us, shrouded in a darkness, transitioning into dawn as it leads me back to you.
Lovely. I just love that. The important things are inside of me, beneath my chest. I love that so, so much. Thank you so much, Sarah. It's been another great edition of the Book Club as we've talked Stay With Me. See you again next week, same time, as we celebrate yet another African female author. Until then, stay strong, stay safe, and stay true. And if you can, do it with a cup of coffee. Goodbye. I was not bothered by the tenderness of my scalp that sent quivers down my neck as the teeth of the comb slid past it, nor was I alarmed at the white of my roots that had come to the surface. No, I was just delighted to be beautiful again. Coconut by Kopano Matlwa.
South African author and Dr. Kopano Matlwa has written 2 novels. Coconut, her debut novel, deals with issues of colonialism, race, and class.
I think Coconut is definitely a youth novel, an urban youth novel set in Johannesburg. It's got 2 parts to its structure. The first part is narrated by Ophilwe, who is the daughter of a nouveau riche couple that live in the suburbs, and the second part narrated by a young girl called Fikile, who's affectionately known as Fix, who lives in the township, and they converge in this restaurant called Silver Spoon.
Now, this book was widely popular among millennials when it was written because it deals with identity. The dance or the struggle with accepting westernization and still acknowledging your own culture, your own traditions.